Hi, I'm Brittany, a neurodivergent mum and speech pathologist. This is Not Just Theories, where I share what actually works in my real, messy life. Because life doesn't follow a theory. Here's what I actually do. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Not Just Theories. Today, I am going to be talking about something that has been a little bit of a theme in my life lately, and I know a lot of other parents will relate. It is that tug of war between wanting routine and needing flexibility. Because for so many of us, routines aren't just about being organised. They're about feeling safe. They're the scaffolding that holds our days together and that keep our brains from getting overwhelmed by that constant, unpredictable chaos of parenting. But, and this is the thing that every parent knows, kids don't always stick to our plans. They wake up early. They refuse breakfast. They lose one shoe right as you're walking out of the door. And suddenly that calm, predictable flow that we built to help us cope is gone. Our plan is out the window and we are floundering in chaos. So today I want to unpack why routine matters so much, particularly for neurodivergent parents, what happens when that predictability disappears, and some of the ways that we can rebuild structure and safety even in the middle of that chaos. Some of the things that I've tried and that have worked for me in my family. So why do routines matter so much? For many neurodivergent people, so whether that's ADHD, autism, anxiety, sensory processing differences, a mix of all of the above, routines are not about control for the sake of control. They're about regulation. So routines give us a sense of rhythm and reduce the number of decisions we need to make in a day. I spoke about that in our last episode. Routines are a bit of a buffer between us and chaos. When I know what's coming next, my brain can rest a little bit. But if my day is full of constant unpredictability, so sensory surprises and emotional surprises and logistical surprises, that buffer disappears. So instead of calmly responding to the next thing, my nervous system treats every change as a threat. So this is why something as simple as someone moving my tea mug so it's not in the cupboard when I'm expecting it to be there, or the kids interrupting my morning rituals, it can feel huge because it's not just about a cup of tea and it taking me 15 seconds longer to make that cup of tea because my mug's not where I was expecting it to be. It's about my predictability going. So my ritual is interrupted, and that moment of routine that normally tells my brain, hey, we're okay, we've got time, we've got space, everything's flowing, it's gone. So I have quite big reactions to unexpected things, even positive unexpected things. I've never been someone who deals well with surprises. It's something I've worked on a lot in therapy, is my ability to tolerate positive changes. But that means that my reaction to negative changes is even bigger than many other people's. So this is something that has been a really big struggle for me. Even before kids, I used to really struggle if my partner would get home from work an hour earlier than I was expecting him to. I loved spending more time with him, but if I had plans for that hour that didn't involve him and all of a sudden I was left stuck feeling like, well, but I had all of these plans. I was going to read my book and I was going to empty the dishwasher and then I was going to go and water the plants, and now you're home. And it's not that I can't read my book and empty the dishwasher and water the plants. It's that I now am torn between wanting to spend time with you, which is what I would have planned to do had I known you were going to be here, but I also really want to enact the plan that I had before you came home and interrupted it with your presence. So this is something that happens even to people without kids because life is unpredictable. Different people cope very differently with their routines and expectations being disrupted. So if you are like me and you're someone who doesn't cope well with change, having kids is really challenging. So before kids, you just have a little bit more control over things like your morning routine. So it might have been that you set your alarm at the same time every day and you were able to get up and eat your breakfast and do some journaling, or you had a quiet drive to work to decompress or listen to a podcast, or you exercised at a certain time of day. And then parenting comes along and all of those routines vanish because you can't control wake-up times in quite the same way. You can't control nap schedules in quite the same way. For most kids, some kids do really well with very set wake-up times and nap schedules. I'm not talking about those kids. You can't control whether anyone actually eats the breakfast that you've made. And that loss of predictability is not just inconvenient, it is dysregulating because our coping tools have been removed. So I've had mornings where I've thought, I just need 5 minutes to sit on the couch and drink my cup of tea without everything falling apart and I'll be okay. But then I don't get to sit on the couch and drink my cup of tea for 5 minutes without everything just becoming an absolute disaster. It happened to me the other day. I was sitting down for my 5 minutes of drinking my cup of tea. My kids were, I thought, watching Bluey because a 7-minute episode of Bluey buys me a cup of tea, calmly sitting on the couch. And my 18-month-old is not quite at the stage where he will zone out and watch 7 minutes of Bluey without getting up. And the next thing I knew, he was in the kitchen pulling off a ceramic plate off the bench that had a bowl of porridge balanced on top of it. Thank goodness it was a plastic bowl of porridge. So I heard this big crash and there was porridge all over the floor. On the plate that he'd pulled off was something that had cheese, which he's allergic to. So he pulled down a plate that had his allergy food on it and he was waving around a ceramic plate like he was so proud of himself and he was clearly gearing up to throw it. I managed to get there in enough time to grab the plate off him and then grab the cheese out of his hand before he ate it, and I had to pop those in the sink quickly, and then I had to clean up this porridge off the floor. But while I opened the under the sink cupboard to get the paper towel out, all of a sudden 18-month-old child is still there because I'm home by myself. I can't get him out of the kitchen without him treading porridge everywhere. He is grabbing loops of paper towel and it's going everywhere. And all I wanted was 5 minutes to sit on the couch and drink my cup of tea. And instead I was in the kitchen clearing up this disaster zone that I couldn't have predicted. He is now tall enough to reach things at the edge of the bench. He was not tall enough to do this 1 week ago. So everything changes. Even when you feel like you have systems in place to prevent big unexpected messes like this from happening, your kids grow, they change, they come up with new challenges. There's just nothing predictable about it. So, we coped, we managed to get through that day. But I think for me, it was that big reminder of even when you think you have a system and you're like, great, I've cleared off the dining table where I know my child can reach because he can climb onto a chair and get things off it. So that's all cleared. I've moved the porridge off there. I've moved the cheese. We're all safe. It's all on the kitchen bench, which he can't reach. Now he can. So they grow, they change, more unpredictable things happen. Anyway, that was a little bit of a story about losing that little bit of structure that I'd tried to buy for myself by putting on an episode of Bluey. So what do we actually need? And, it's not a surprise to anyone. What do you need? You need some flexibility. Way easier said than done, because flexibility, it is a muscle, but it is also something that certain personality types find much, much harder than others. And for someone who really craves control and really craves routine, I've had to find ways of building flexibility into my plan that help me cope when unpredictable things happen. So for me, that's things like I really struggle when I'm running late. That's something that I find particularly stressful, and I have to build in a huge amount of buffer into my getting ready routine in order to not be late, because being late is so stressful for me. So it's not about going, okay, well, if everything went perfectly, I'm going to need 45 minutes to get ready and get out of the door with these two children. It's going, okay, well, now I have two children. in an ideal world, if everything went to plan, it would only take me 45 minutes. But that means I can't start getting ready 45 minutes before I need to go out the door, because if even one unpredictable thing happens, I'm so stressed. I'm so upset. I lose my whole regulation, and it's just a disaster, because once one thing then is off the routine and I know I'm going to be late, my dysregulation then causes more unpredictable things to happen because kids pick up on that. So by building in extra buffer, quite a lot of extra buffer, I am able to maintain my regulation even when those unpredictable things happen, because I've built flexibility into that routine or that plan. So that's just one tiny little shift that we do. And it might sound really simple. If you're someone who naturally does that, that might sound super duper obvious. But if you're someone who historically, before kids, everything just went to plan and you always had a plan and you knew exactly how long you needed to shower for, and you knew exactly how long it took you to get dressed, and you knew exactly how long it took you to drink a cup of tea, et cetera, all of a sudden the unpredictability of kids is really, really hard to factor into, 30 years of what life looked like before them. And it's something I've had to deliberately start building in as a conscious decision, is going, okay, well, it would take us 45 minutes to get ready if everything went well. I need to add at least 30 minutes in case it doesn't. Because if I, am about to leave thinking that we're running on time, and then all of a sudden someone needs a bathroom trip, I can't control that. If they need to go to the toilet, they need to go to the toilet. We need to factor in enough time for an unexpected bathroom trip, or an unexpected nappy blowout, or a porridge bowl being spilt all over the floor that I now need to clean up before I can do anything else. So that's one big thing that I've done as a really practical shift. It is just building more time into the mental plans that I have. Another thing that has really helped is that instead of having a routine that is time-based, having it as it's sort of based on anchors rather than specific times. So it's not things like, oh, we have lunch at 12 p.m. It's after we get home from the park, we'll wash our hands, have lunch, and then it will be nap time. So rather than nap time being at a specific time, it's more that it fits into a rhythm rather than a routine. And having that sort of predictability in order, even if it's not a predictability in time, has helped me quite a lot. So we don't wake up at the same time every day, and we don't go to bed at the same time every day either, because I have children who have unique sleep needs, as all children do, and they actually don't need the same amount of sleep every day either. They need a similar amount of sleep. Some days, it might be 9.5 hours in 24. Some days it might be 10.5 hours in 24. But if I chose to put my child to bed at 8 p.m. every night, and that night she needed 9 hours, the next day she would wake up at, what would that be? 5 a.m. And then if the next day she needed 12 hours and I put her to bed at 8 p.m., she'd be getting up at 8 a.m. the next day. So thinking about, is having a set bedtime or a set wake time, or particularly if you're trying to set both of those things, it's not going to let her get the right amount of sleep that she needs each day, because she's not someone with such consistent sleep needs that would work for her. So that's been something that's been really quite challenging to work with. And for me, I found it much easier to have a set wake up time. So obviously this doesn't mean that she can't get up before it, because I can't control that. But what it is if we're still asleep at a certain time, that's when we wake her up. I'm going to talk more about sleep in a future episode, because sleep has been one of our biggest battles as parents, and I think it is for a lot of people. But a consistent final wake up time, like as in the time I will wake my child up if she is not already independently awake, has been one of the biggest things for us for getting sleep under control in our house. So if she's not already awake at 7:30, we wake her up at 7:30. We don't do sleep-ins. There's a lot of sleep science about why a set morning wake up time, a consistent morning wake time, is the best way that you can support yourself and children through sleep. It only really works in one direction. You can't really put a kid very easily back to sleep who woke up at 6:30 just because you want them to sleep through till 7:30. You can't make someone sleep who's not tired. But at least that's one element of control that I've found I can manage, which is the latest wake up time that we will have in our house. And then from that, we then live our day through a rhythm and a routine. And then we go to bed at approximately the same time at night. But the amount of time it might take her to fall asleep or the number of things that we manage to get done during that bedtime routine will expand or shrink depending on how tired she is. So this is something where sometimes when she's really tired, she might actually fall asleep during our book reading routine because she's had a bigger day or needs more sleep that particular night based on whatever time she woke up. So I think all of that to say, time-based routines are really predictable. But when you have unpredictable components to your routine, like children, I think if you're time-based, you see those numbers changing and you can see how off routine you're getting, which can be really, really dysregulating. If you're rhythm-based, where you sort of go, okay, we're going to go to the park and then we come home and have lunch after the park. If you're at the park and it's taking you 20 minutes to get home because your child keeps stopping to look at every single snail they see along the path, or because it's a bit of a battle to get them home from the playground that day, they've had a friend meet them there and it's hard to get home, all those sorts of things that can happen. If you're sitting there going, we're late for lunch, this mental lunch that you've put in at a specific time in your head, it's going to be more stressful, not less. But if you know that it's lunch when we get home from the park and wash our hands, it helps you stay more calm and more regulated because your plan is not being disrupted in quite the same way. I hope that makes sense. It's a bit of a mindset shift, particularly for people who are a little bit more wedded to those really specific numbers. But if it is a shift you can make slowly over time to really think about your routines that way, I hope that helps for you. And then the other thing that I find really helpful is to find the things that I can control and notice them. So when everything else feels like it's going out of control, it's a bit of a reframe, but you look around and you go, well, what am I controlling in this moment? What is in my power to control? And some days all that is I've chosen the color plate that I'm eating my dinner off. I was able to control that. I'm able to control, which mug I've chosen for my tea. And those sort of little predictable things, if you notice them, can be so, so helpful. It might even be little things like having rituals that are not elaborate, but it might be always lighting the same candle when you sit down to read a book. If you are lucky enough to be able to sit down and read a book. It might be when you clean the kitchen, putting on a specific type of music and you can control that. Or when you're doing, driving with your kids, are you able to control the music that's playing in the car? I know that one can be a bit of a tricky one as your kids get older. But, if you're able to, is that something you can do? Are you able to get your child their own little music player with headphones so they can listen to what they want to and you can still listen to your own thing on your car speakers? So thinking about what is in your locus of control, because so much will be out of it, that it's really important to notice what you can do and focus in on that. Anyway, I hope that helps. One more thing I really wanted to talk about was acknowledging the grief when your routines don't fit anymore with your life, because I don't think people talk about it a lot. There's a lot of stuff out there about, parenting and parenthood and grieving the person you were before, but I'm not seeing a lot about grieving the routines that once worked, because that has been one of the big things for me. I adore being a parent. I love my kids, but I miss the Brittany that I was when I had control over my time and my energy and my environment. Because, on those days where everything just is chaos and unpredictable, and I can't even finish my cup of tea before it goes cold, I really miss how regulated I could be. And I really grieve the parent that I imagined that I would be before I experienced what life was like in the chaos of parenting, because I think when you are someone who's got a way of regulating yourself, and before you're a parent, you think, okay, well, when I'm a parent, of course I'm going to be a calm parent. Of course I'm going to, be this wonderful person who's got this energy and can show up for your kids, particularly as someone who works with kids. I used to do sessions and I'd have parents say things like, wow, you're going to be such a good mom. You're so patient with my kid. And that was so lovely of them to say, but that was not reality of what parenting is. I was showing up to my job well rested, well regulated, with all of this time that I could use and control, and it meant that I was showing up as the best version of myself. But parenting took all of that away from me. And all of a sudden, I was this parent that I didn't want to be, that I didn't think I was going to be. And it's okay to grieve that, because those routines and those things you relied on, they weren't just habits that were nice. They were regulation tools. And losing that space and that control is really hard. And if you've been feeling frustrated or resentful or guilty about not keeping up those routines that you had before, it's a different life stage that is demanding flexibility from a brain that might crave predictability. And grieving that is important, because if you don't acknowledge the loss, you can't progress and you can't build new systems that fit this new season of life. If you stubbornly cling to what you had as a routine, even when it's not working in your current life stage, you're not going to find the new thing that would work better. So it's okay to be upset that your time-based routine is not working anymore, but it is important to acknowledge that so you can move towards a more rhythm-based routine. And that takes time and acknowledgement. So reframing that control from, control's not bad. It's not a dirty word. Control is about safety, and it helps us function and it reduces overload. But it's important to remember that we can't control everything. We need to focus on what we can control, and whether that's the order that you get ready, maybe it's having one meal a day that's exactly how you like it, and protecting those moments of control can really help ground you even when everything else is unpredictable. So, quick summary of ideas for sort of flexible predictability, what it actually looks like. So the things that really helped me. So one of them was using order-based routines instead of time-based ones. It's about sort of anchoring your day with rituals that you can control. So things like using the mug that gives you that sort of stability and safety for your nervous system. Planning for flexibility. So expecting that routines will break, building in buffer zones and extra time so that those moments of unpredictability can be managed without impacting on your sort of end goal or your timing of something that maybe is a bit set, like the time you need to leave the house to get to work on time. And the last one is just acknowledging that it really sucks when you want to control things and you can't. It is hard. It's particularly hard for some people who maybe rely more on that control and predictability than others. But yeah, it's just really important to acknowledge so you can find what does work in this new stage of life that you're in. So you're living in a world that demands flexibility from a brain that might be wired for predictability, and adapting over and over again is not failure, it's strength. Your routines probably don't look like they used to. Finding the ways to have them be present and comforting and more rhythmic rather than time-based will hopefully help you stay regulated and help you show up for your family. They just need to be predictable enough. So thanks again for listening to Not Just Theories this week. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear your thoughts. Come chat with me on Instagram at Not Just Theories. In the next episode, we are going to talk a little bit more about transitions. So not for kids, but transitions for parents. A little bit about why they're so exhausting, how they can derail our nervous systems, and what actually helps when parenting forces us to switch those gears constantly. And the episode after that will be focusing on rupture and repair, because losing our cool doesn't mean we failed, and repair matters far more than getting it right all the time. The new episodes will be released on Tuesday mornings, and I will talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening to Not Just Theories. I really appreciate you being here. If this episode resonated with you, the best way to support the show is to follow, leave us a rating or review, or just share this episode with someone else who you think might find it comforting or useful. I hope to see you back here soon.